everyone. Good morning and welcome everyone to the Colorado Forest Health Council's Legislative Committee's meeting. I welcome you all. I am Chair Commissioner Jody Shai McNally, and welcome you all. And we'll go ahead and take roll call to see if we have quorum. Thank you.
Thanks, Jody. I'll just run down the list. Samantha Albert. Do not see Samantha. Christy Belton.
I'm here. Morning.
Good morning. Pat Dorsey. Director Matt McCombs, our designee. Hi, James. Okay, Commissioner Jody Static McNally. Hi. Mark Morgan. Morning, Mark. Julie Stencil.
Good morning.
Morning, Julie. And Selvin White Skunk. So we do have enough members for quorum this morning. Oh, and Katie. Good morning, Katie.
Good morning. I'm not an official member. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Courtney, and thank you everyone for being here. I value all of your time, and it's really important, the work we do, so I appreciate everyone's time. So let's move on to our next item, which would be approval of the minutes. Does anyone, I think there's two sets of minutes, Courtney, or just one?
Just one, I believe, from July 28th.
Okay. So, and yeah, I had looked through that. Does anyone have any changes, corrections, or questions? Okay, I welcome a motion to approve the minutes. And let's note that Samantha Albert has also joined.
Okay. I'll move to approve the minutes.
Great. We have first and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye and kind of raise your hand. Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Any opposed? Excellent. Okay. So I thought I would share quickly to share with you all about our presentation to the Wildfire Matters Review Committee, which we met and on Tuesday afternoon at 1 o'clock. No worries, Samantha. And we presented Director Gibbs, myself, Angela, and Director Matt McCombs all presented in front of the review committee. Our recommendations were met with esteemed support. There wasn't any really pushback. It was just a few questions. We got a lot of thanks and gratitude for our work, and they seemed to be very pleased with the work that we're doing. And I want to just say to Angela and Director Gibbs, it was phenomenal, the presentation and how we all kind of flowed. And I want to just say I was really proud of how we presented that day. And so far, the only question that maybe gives us, maybe some insights, they asked us to which was to prioritize, which initiative. And so I would have said, all of them. And so I kind of let Director Gibbs comment on that. And so he was talking about, the Good Neighbor Authority and all of some of the ones that are really going to help us leverage federal funding. But it went really well. And I just wanted to share that with you quick. If there's any questions, and I think Courtney listened in as well. And so does anyone have any questions or about the presentation? But it went very well. Christy.
Thank you. And thanks for presenting. When you said that they asked us to prioritize, were they asking that you prioritize the initiatives there on the spot, or were they recommending that we do that as a group?
Great clarifying question. They were asking that on the spot. I think they just kind of wanted to get a feel for, not as a group, but just kind of on the spot there. And of course, I would have probably expanded like, hey, we worked really hard trying to get this list narrowed down to 5. And so, but I did talk about our work in the seed deficit and some of those other things. So I kind of shared some, instead of just presenting, I shared some of the background of some of the work we did in our getting out in the field and talking with folks. And so I kind of tried to maybe tell some of the stories of our work from this summer, because you all have put in so much time. And so I wanted and I kind of expressed that too. So does that answer your question, Christy?
It does, and leads to another one.
Sure.
Do we take that as a cue moving forward that we maybe whittle down our list and get it to 1 or 2 and really focus on those?
No, I don't think so. I think if we get that amount, I think we need to ask. There's a lot of work and a lot of asks. And I think that we need to keep asking and keep the pressure. I wouldn't say pressure, keep the support
Sure.
and keep the conversation at this level to push on the urgency and the need for this. So
Thank you.
I don't think we should be shy of stating the need and the urgency. And I think that came across is the urgency. And Director Gibbs gave a great presentation on our administrative direction, or how do we word that? Into the administrative direction from the council. And so we really tried to stay high level. And of course they have the report, and I feel like it was pretty well received. So,
Thanks.
okay. We have a lot to talk about. Any other questions? Okay. So we'll move on to, we're cruising through this agenda, which is great. I've gotten a lot of questions about an update on our legislation that we either, there was 2 pieces, one that we really championed, Senate Bill 5, and then House Bill 1060. And I've been asking questions, but I thought it might be great to have an update about the work and where we're at, because a lot of folks are really excited, and a lot of people forget that you can't just turn on I want to note that Pat Dorsey has now joined us. Welcome, Pat. So I thought maybe James or Courtney or Angela could kind of share where we're at with those and how that is progressing. I know Director Matt McCombs had a big meeting this week to maybe leverage some federal partners for the nursery. So there's a lot happening. He shared that too. You could go back. He gave a really great report about some of that on Tuesday. So does James or Angela or Courtney want to kind of start with that updates?
I'll take the lead here. Thank you, Commissioner. I think specifically with with House Bill 1060, the nursery bill, we're still kind of in a holding pattern specifically with what that bill was designed to do. We're still working through consultants to figure out which contractor we want to start to take on to actually start the implementation of the upgrades. We had a leadership meeting about this specific kind of process, and we're anticipating it taking the nursery offline for maybe 1 to 2 years once we actually start implementing and start going forward on actually upgrading it. I would be interested to hear from Angela how the tour went, because I know that we've been in connection. We've been talking with Bessie Nursery, which is a nursery that the Forest Service actually manages. But there's been talk how we can collaborate with them. And I know that this is the second nursery tour. The first one, our agency went out to Bessie, but this one they came over here. And I'd be interested to hear if Angela had any perspective on how that tour went.
Yeah, thanks. So I think it went well. James, you provided good context, but basically Director McCombs invited some Washington office U.S. Forest Service folks, as well as some Region 2 U.S. Forest Service folks for a tour of the nursery. I think what he's really looking for, or what the State Forest Service is interested in, is potentially a federal partnership that would essentially have the U.S. Forest Service ordering, basically developing projects whereby the CSFS nursery is fulfilling the seedling orders. And so, currently the nursery operates on a speculative basis. So they grow what they think they'll be able to sell, and then they sell what they have, as opposed to, primarily on a speculative basis, as opposed to growing to order. They do a few of those, but it doesn't make up a huge component of their business yet, but they'd like it to make up a greater proportion, because obviously it's more predictable, just a more stable source of income, etc. So, I think we made a little bit of headway. It's always hard to say. Folks who operate at that level with U.S. Forest Service, of course, they can't make promises on the spot about funding availability or even being able to develop, projects that would be appropriate to grow seedlings at our nursery. The other thing that was interesting was I think the Bessie nursery manager was on the tour as well, and they have done a bunch of renovations really over the last 15 years. It's been pretty drawn out because they didn't have dedicated funding necessarily. But I think they're in a better place now. And he says they're not at capacity in terms of growing. So they have room to ramp up. And it's all to say that, I think the U.S. Forest Service is open to a deeper partnership with our state Forest Service and their nursery. But I think the stars all have to align in terms of their actual demand for seedlings and, the funding available to put in those orders. And then to James's point, does the timing align with the renos that are going to be taking place? And I mean, I'm assuming it probably makes the most sense for that to occur after the renos are complete, when the nursery is sort of fully operational. So yeah, lots to chew through, and I think it's going to be an ongoing conversation for a while. But I think overall, the nursery is in a much better place than it even was a year or two ago. Scott Godwin, who's the new manager, seems great. He's already done a lot to get it into better working order. And even with their current facilities, I think he said they can grow about 500,000 seedlings a year, which is a little more than I thought, which is great. And I think, they suspect that once the renos are complete, they could be over 1 million a year quite easily. So yeah, it's exciting. Any questions folks have about that? All right.
Thanks, Angela.
Yeah, sure thing.
Yeah, thank you, Angela, and thank you, James. Appreciate that. And then who would? Mr. Morgan, you have your hand raised.
One quick comment about that. It's kind of welcome to the world of private industry. If you're trying to anticipate the demand and grow a product or create a product, generally like our product line with Tim Industry is over a year long, the completion of the process. So it's kind of similar, but there's also the problem with if you create demand for contracts, and then if you have a contract, then you're in a position where you have to fulfill it regardless of concerns. And oftentimes when you're starting up a new venture, I would suggest that you would try to err on the side of capacity rather than getting too many long-term contracts, because you really don't know how consistently you're going to perform, and you'll learn as you go along. It's kind of like, I'm sure you've both heard that old movie about a ball field in Iowa. If you build it, they'll come. Well, I think the shortage is so great right now for seedlings. If you build the capacity, they'll find you. And I think you might be in a better position without having too many long-term contractual requirements, because shrewd operators will probably order from you going in when you truly haven't yet developed your costs, so they might be buying a bargain. And I think you're going to have a product that's going to be very much in demand. So I think I would err on the other side. That's 2 bits worth of advice, and so it's worth what you paid for it. It was free.
Thanks,
I
Mr. Morgan.
appreciate
That's
that.
really helpful.
I
And just
appreciate that.
another,
I'll make sure to take it. Go ahead, Angela.
I was just going to share an anecdote that we heard on the tour from Bessie Nursery, that several years ago they had a huge hailstorm and it just wiped out, like 50% of their product that was in their outdoor shade structures. So a good reminder that things like that can happen and set you back a year or two.
I was
you,
just going
Mr.
to say, I'll make sure to take that to Director McCombs too. I think it's valuable insight. So
Yeah, thank you for those insights, Mr. Morgan. It's you have such a long wealth of information and career. It's
I've
good.
just been in the business of filling orders posts at $7 that I've got $11 in, and you don't want to be in that position.
Yeah. Well, great. Well, is there, Angela would, I don't know who can give us an update on Senate Bill 5. I hear there's still, James, thank you, James.
Yeah, so Senate Bill 5 is finally starting to kind of get moving finally. We've had a lot of pushback, isn't the word that I'd say, some challenges with the Department of Higher Ed, both on this bill and on a different bill dealing with biochar, of just getting the funds into the correct place. The funds for Senate Bill 5 have finally become available. And about 2 weeks ago, we were updated that they were going to send out direction and directive on how they're going to start deciding which of these institutions of higher education they're going to start targeting for expanding or even creating forestry groups. Off the top of my head, I know that our own CSU is interested. I've heard from CSU Pueblo. I've heard from Front Range Community College about expanding. So there is a lot of desire to start requesting some of these funds. I keep refreshing their news feed to kind of see if those I don't know. I'm going to call them NOFOs, notice of funding opportunities, have come forward, but I haven't actually seen them drop. I just keep hitting refresh. But once those become available, that's when they're going to send the call out to all of these institutions and say, these funds are available should you want to expand or even create your forestry products. I think on a tangential side, what the CSFS is kind of tasked with is creating education materials about all the jobs that you can do. I'm sorry, my cat is freaking out. Hey. Education materials, and we've actually started to the group that's tasked with kind of creating those to say these are the jobs you can get in forest mitigation, in timber industries and stuff like that. That's finally it's been created. We haven't actually started to actually create those documents yet, but the working group to actually start creating those educational materials, which will be given to high school counselors around the state in order to kind of push people towards these industries, has actually started to take shape. We should be getting back Kristen Garrison, who is our Associate Director for Planning and Implementation. She took a leave of absence, but she should be starting this month of September. Happy September, everybody. And so we're excited to kind of get this kind of up and rolling. That's the update that I have for Senate Bill 5. I'm willing to take questions, but I don't have a lot more information besides that.
I have a quick question. When you
Mhm.
talked about challenges with higher ed, that was a concern I had, that it was going to kind of get some barriers to kind of get rolling. Do we think this is going to, because we talked about going to existing and creation of new. So do you think there's a pathway to expedite some of the funding to the existing while they kind of wrestle with the new? Or is that conversation being had? Because, I think that was a very clear, I think it was in the language, it talked about, existing and new. So I didn't know if that maybe could be teased out. Just curious about that from anybody who has information.
The way that I read the bill, I think it's just one notice of funding opportunity. So once they send out that call, then that's when the Forest Service is actually called into, like, we're the deciding entity. So I think if maybe there's an opportunity for us to do that at an administrative level, then we should look into it, because I agree, if it's an existing program that's just looking to expand, it might be easier to get that going. But at least the way the legislation was read, it has to come after this call goes out for people to actually apply for those funds.
Okay, that's fantastic. I appreciate that clarification. And I would humbly ask respectfully if maybe that could be brought up to just have that, as a question to see. And James, I have to laugh because I'm at home too, and my big horse of a dog, it keeps nudging me in the side. So I don't know if you see me doing this. It's my dog. So
Did you say Corso? A big
of
Corso
course,
dog?
my dog. So of
Oh.
course, he's like like some kind of large Rhodesian Ridgeback. So if you see his brown nose, you'll know what's going on. He's hit me in the armpit. So I hope I'm not too distracting. So thank you. So, So you have your cat, I have my dog today, so I just wanted to share that. So anyway, I just hope that maybe that could be a conversation. So Mr. Morgan had his hand up. Thank you for
Yeah.
your patience.
I got a call from the head of the department for Front Range Community College last night, and she was concerned and in a little bit of a panic because they had gotten her assistant had gotten a message that the governor wanted them to present their program to them or what they wanted in a week. And I was going to try to find out whether that was coming through Director Gibbs' office or whether it was going to be direct to the governor or whether it was politically motivated, maybe some of our legislators or whatever. And she was asked, and they were trying to put something together. And I said I would try to find out today what had generated that, because Jennifer Lee and Heather Danahauer were very much wanting to get on top of this and do what was. So does anybody here know whose department has generated that? So
I don't, Mark. That's interesting. I have a call with my boss after this, so I can ask, if they've heard anything, but I don't know. I don't think it's DNR.
well, I thought I would maybe check with Director Gibbs too, but she was trying to find out more last night because they wanted, obviously, she said, I can have a presentation ready to go. We're teaching right now and we have all of these requests and we simply don't have the faculty to do it. We're just, and she's, I can tell them what we need right now. I can be ready to go on this. And so I think, I guess top of my list right now for issues is implementing Senate Bill 5, because everywhere I go, everybody still has a shortage and nobody has the manpower to implement any of the things we want to do. And I've got to find a diplomatic way to put this, but most of the time, higher education in the state of Colorado very much has to be led to the water trough to get them to drink. And sometimes you have to stand on the head in the water trough. So I think it's trying to be polite here, but I just think that we have to open up a really good channel for communicating with educational bureaucracy in Colorado, our needs, and be fairly direct and forceful about it, I guess, because I think it's a real problem. We got to be cooperative and helpful, but I think they have a long history of waiting to see what happens, and I don't think we have time to wait.
Mr. Morgan, do you happen to know the name of the staff person who contacted them? Was it directly from the governor's office, or do you have any names like Alec or Lenny or anyone like that?
I'm going to try to find that out today. I just got a call from Jennifer Lee last night. She's head of the department at Front Range, and she just said that someone had approached her other instructor over there. And I said, well, I will try to find out today who generated that request. And then she was trying to find out. I said, well, are you going to be presenting to the governor or to a representative of their office? And so I think we're getting some movement here, and I think people are trying to do the right thing, and we got to find out who and how. So I think I appreciate everybody's help very, very much on this. It looks like people are trying to respond, and I've had requests like that in the past. A couple of times in the past, we got a request that then Governor Hickenlooper wanted to talk to us on some industry-wide issues, and we went down and chatted with him, and maybe that's the case here. I don't know. Maybe the governor's looking into this on his own and saying, where are we trying to go? So maybe he's delegated somebody. I have no clue. I'm just going to do my best to find out. And I thought this was a great group to poll here this morning. So
Thanks for that information, and I'll be very curious. And please express our gratitude for her to be sharing her expertise. I think that's really important. So, and we support her. So, or at least I do. I
Thank
can't
you.
speak for all of you, but I'm glad that she's scrambling. It's certainly a busy time at the beginning of the school year. So, all right. Well, any other questions about Senate Bill 5? Sounds like it's starting to get some traction is what I'm understanding. Is everyone feeling that way too? So that's exciting.
I really appreciate the.
Thanks for the
opportunity.
Thank you for that opportunity.
Yeah, thank you, James, and everyone for those presentations. So I wanted to move on to the last item. We wanted to kind of we had talked about last time doing an after action report. I think Samantha and Director McCombs had mentioned that last meeting. And, but Director McCombs couldn't be here today. And I know James could probably, share his thoughts, but I think it'd be great to wait till we have him here and have that on another agenda. He couldn't be here today. So I'm hoping that, that would be okay with you all. But one thing we talked about was how we can backward plan and think about how we can get ready for the next session. So we're already thinking about 2025, right? And I think we talked about this. Courtney and I actually were on a co-swap tour potential yesterday. And when I said to the group that, hey, we're already as a Forest Health Council thinking about 2025 because we've just finalized our 2024 recommendations, their eyes just got big, but really we have to kind of, so we're not rushed like, last time we were scrambling, trying to get all this information and trying to narrow down so many important priorities. So one thing that was brought up was kind of this backward planning, because we also need to kind of get into the governor's budget and kind of have those recommendations kind of or a direction before some of those budget things start to get formed. So I asked Courtney if we could find some of those deadlines and then kind of backwards plan. Not saying we're going to get them all done, but we need to kind of at least get, if we're going to ask for $1 million for GNA or this or that, have those numbers or at least placeholders to let those folks know in that budget that this is kind of some things we're going to be looking for. And so I don't know, Courtney, if you have some of those dates so we can kind of backward plan and then we can kind of structure how we go forward and our cadence and our speakers and have a little more time to ask speakers to come and all those things. So I don't know how everyone feels about that, but I think it'd be great to kind of see where we need to be and then kind of plan backwards kind of our medium stuff. Mr. Morgan.
Very quickly. Also, I think in our original charter mandate goal or whatever we had, I believe there was the interest in developing a 30-year plan for our forest. Was that not correct? So I think,
Yeah.
So I'm thinking maybe I'm all about getting the right now stuff, but I also, for what we signed on here, I think we were looking for at least put a little bit of thought into a truly long-term vision. And I'm happy with not doing that, but I don't want to feel like I've let somebody down if we don't do it.
Well, and I also think, and I think that's a great point, Mr. Morgan. And I think us by having some of those administrative directions and talks we had, I think that also was part of kind of us trying to look down, the long way, get all this information and figure out what we need to do kind of. So I think there's the short term and the long term. So I agree with you. That would be maybe something we should have a discussion on as well. Courtney, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to speak to Mark's flag of the 30-year vision. This is something Angela and I also are not wanting the council to forget. So we were planning to bring it up in the Leveraging Resources Committee in September to see if that's something that they wanted to take on, since at this point they've sort of been developing that pre-fire planning guide, and that's moving out of their wheelhouse a little bit. So we were going to see if they wanted to consider taking on the 30-year vision, or we were also going to talk about it in the October Forest Health Council meeting. So I wanted to let you know, Mark, that it hasn't totally, slipped under the bed. We're thinking about it too, and we're going to have a larger conversation in the next couple of meetings about it.
I'm an action now kind of guy, but I don't want to be accused of being a shirker here for what I signed on to do. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, no, that's a good.
No, I think that's a great point, and how we can add that to our conversation, kind of like, 30-year vision, where we hope the forest will be, and then backwards, what it should look like in maybe the next 10 or next 5, and then we have the next session. So, because I think a lot of people don't realize how legislation gets formed, like that whole 6 months before session. So I think, yeah.
Foresters have always said we manage 100-year rotation crop on annual budgets. And
Yeah.
that really is still the challenge.
I think that's an excellent point. Very good. I love that. So, Courtney, do you have that date?
Yes. So I put together a little like hypothetical calendar I thought we could look at live, since I'm very visual, and sort of like work backwards. James, I know you have a lot of experience with the process, so I'm hoping you can provide a lot more insight than I can. I mostly just like made the calendar. So let me pull that up. And I put a couple dates on it. Some are firm, some are not. So it starts with this year. So this is this week, the presentation to the Wildfire Matters Review Committee. We have the fall coming, and then in January, essentially the start of the legislative session. So I have that all in yellow, and this is just based on last year's dates. And then I put some hard dates here in next July, at least from my understanding from last year, or the year 2023, July 17th was the year that the Office of State Planning and Budget requested the department's budgets, and DNR was reviewing budget proposals mid-May. And so at least for DNR, and I'm not familiar with the State Forest Service or the Division of Fire Prevention and Control, within DNR, Angela thought it would be reasonable that perhaps recommendations are sent to the departments May 1st, because they're considering them mid-May, and then in July they're being sent to the governor's office. So these dates in green are the ones that are kind of like department dates that at least occurred in 2023. I'm not exactly sure where they're going to fall in 2024. And then I thought we could work backwards from this May 1st date. So I put in some hypothetical milestones, like the council would need to approve the recommendations. We would need to send them to the council. But maybe before we go, backwards in time, James or anyone, do you guys have feedback on kind of these department budget dates or other information? Okay.
Well, I think that's great. I wanted to go back a few up into when you have the deliberation meeting. I think we should go ahead and plan for 2
Okay.
on the 25th too. Because knowing that we had we took pretty much almost 3 meetings, which I think is great. But I just want to make sure we create that space so that if we need to have more conversations, that would be, I think, important to build in. So we're not like deliberating, in case we get it right up to that April 8th, we're not kind of feeling that crunch to get those out. So.
Okay. One other thing, Samantha Albert had mentioned, it might be nice to have an open committee meeting where people can come in. So this is something we didn't do this year, but that's something I heard in the last meeting that might be helpful. So it might reduce lots of the questions that come in the full council meeting. I'm not sure what you all think about having that type of a meeting, or if, yeah, I just wanted to let you know that I put this in and that we had not done this.
I think it's great. I think it's also a chance to, because we did take a long time to present last time, and I think that was a great suggestion, Samantha, that we just give everybody a chance to kind of understand. So we spent a lot of time at the full Forest Health Council for people just trying to get the background, and this might be a chance for them to get some of the context and background. So I think it's a great idea. Does anyone else have any questions or comments? Okay. What do you think about this calendar?
I guess I do have a question.
Sure, James.
So I'm looking at this and it looks good, But it looks like we're only kind of taking into account kind of like executive level things. So from the governor and the departments. I think I'm not very familiar with that kind of side of government. Mine is, as you know, kind of in the legislature. So some of the things that I'm looking at are, if you scroll up, Courtney, in that November timeframe there, November 2023, that's when we actually find out the answer of whether or not the wildfire committee's bills, if any of them kind of come forward through legislative council. So the way, as I'm sure as you guys know, wildfire committee meets, they either draft bills and then they send them forward to this other committee, which is called the legislative council. And then legislative council actually gives the final go ahead on whether or not these bills kind of come forward. And so that actually gets decided sometime in November. I think this year, the date for that, it looks like it's November 15th. Following from that, and I don't anticipate us going this way because it's not the way that we operate. 15th, Courtney.
Okay, yeah.
Sorry.
This is just like the week of November 13th.
Oh, okay.
Like all these dates are Mondays in this
And
column.
so as once that kind of gets finalized, like I said, we don't actually move in this kind of capacity, but then as legislators kind of take on one-off bills on their own. So let's say the wildfire committee does not move forward Bill B from us, or legislative council does not move Bill B from us, but let's say Senator Cutter really liked it, she could bring that forward on her own. Those bills start to becoming due to the front desk around late December, early January. And so if we're in kind of consultation with some of these bills that might be one-offs with members that are friendly to the Forest Health Council, then around December is when we might be activated to kind of give a little direction in drafting some of these bills. And so I would just be cognizant of those two dates.
I think that's important, James. Thanks for bringing that up, and I agree with you. That's kind of how we did last year. We got invited to some stakeholdering, and if you remember, we kind of gave some permission for some of us to attend. I'm attending as a county commissioner for next week with Senator Cutter for the biochar discussion. But I think these other ones, it would be great to also. Whatever does get forward, we probably need to take a vote to, okay, so I want to clarify this. If we have the legislative priorities, we still need to kind of take a vote to endorse a certain bill. So we should probably do that around there somewhere afterwards. Because we should know those by the start of session. So we should come out kind of endorsed early on. I don't know what, or have the process so we can get that, make that in recommendation, get that to the full council as a legislative in our little reports they wanted to have, and then or updates, and then have that, make sure that's in the calendar so we know that's an important date to be, so that we can move forward with full endorsements. And I don't know how that also with the timing for the full council, when those meetings are and how we time that, because then we might have to have another, if the timing's not there, do we need to have another quick full council meeting like we did this week at noon to kind of get that approval of like the full report and recommendation. So I don't know what everyone thinks about that. I think that's an important date to get in there somewhere so we can formally endorse that. What are your thoughts, Courtney?
I'd be curious, to hear from you, Jody and James, about when I should put that on the calendar. Like, when does endorsement really need to happen? I think Angela and I are open to building the 2024 full council schedule around these sorts of dates. Like, do we need to have it in January? Do we need to have it in February? So this is a good time to decide when we need full endorsement.
Well, if they become priority bills, and James, correct me if I'm wrong, they'll be introduced the first day and be
So
like Senate Bill
be
5 was like,
before or after?
it will be introduced usually on the first day of session, right, James? They will be on the first day of session. And the Senate Bill 5 was right there in that first, I think they list, James, the first 10 or first 20, and it depends. And it would be great to, come right back behind it with a full, and for us to be able to get out and then say, the Forest Health Council supports this bill, right? Because if it's a first day, they're going to start moving some of those quicker through and things like that. If they have, and then, as you know, if they get passed through the committee, then they go appropriations. It kind of hangs in the, for the appropriations, but if we have that momentum behind it, it kind of helps us keep the momentum going. So what do you think, James? Would you agree?
I would agree. I think like if these become priority bills, then I think having a built-in meeting to endorse bills, probably, I would say the middle of January, I think is a safe bet, just because a lot of work isn't going to be getting done in those first couple weeks. It's more administrative. It will be introduced. You're absolutely right, Commissioner. But we won't actually start seeing committee hearings on bills until about the second or third week of session, just because they're still doing administrative work. So if those bills are introduced, it will give us enough time to say, like, hey, we want to meet and we endorse this bill, and then it can go into its first committee hearing with that endorsement. So yeah, I would agree. I think that second week of maybe having it built in and ready to go might be an appropriate time frame.
That's really helpful.
Spot on, Jade. I agree with you. And it kind of starts a little slow, and all of a sudden it just takes off.
It takes off.
And if it's anything like the last session, we better buckle up. So all the way to the end, to the last minute. I think this is good to start. What does everyone think?
I also want to note that in this current drafting, there's 5 weeks in a row of receiving presentations. So I think this past session, you all had 6 presentations. I don't know if you all want just as many, if you want a few less that are spread out. I think it'd be helpful to know, are we going to start looking for presenters to come in January or in February? Are we, do you guys want a brainstorming session at the beginning, or do you kind of just want to keep brainstorming throughout and inviting new people? That might be, we don't have to finalize this, of course, but that's just something else to keep in mind of, like, when do you want to start hearing from the subject matter experts? And did you like the cadence? It was really fast this year. It was like, every week.
It was, and I appreciate everyone's patience, but I think we all voted to do that so we could get through all this information. Also, I'm wondering this year, Courtney, we have these opportunities with the administrative things we put forward to have some of these meetings, that those might be happening and those might be off, those might be separate, that we go to as a legislative council to listen and learn, but not be part of those presentations. And I'm wondering if some of those meetings, we also have put in a time for when we go to other, like Christy learned something and she wanted to present on. We go to the wildfire conference in April and learn a bunch of things we wanted. So I wonder if we have a meeting for because we're all doing things and learning, if we have some meetings built in to share ideas or things that we're learning from around the state. And so I don't know if we can kind of put a place card holder there. And I appreciate Samantha giving some suggestions, and I totally agree with those suggestions. I wonder if we should start a spreadsheet of ideas of presentations, and then we can kind of have a meeting about which ones we want to prioritize, because they're all great ideas, but maybe some we want to do sooner than later. And then that gives staff enough time to kind of asked for the right presenters. We're not scrambling like we did, but I think, you know, I want to reflect back that we're still kind of new, and we had really that first workforce bill, and we were so focused on getting that win, which is really great. And so now I think we're learning and adjusting and evolving as going forward about how we can do this so we can have enough time to do. We're going to be doing basically two things at once. We're going to be advocating for the legislative priorities that we voted for, and then also planning for the next session, and then the 5 and 10 and 30-year vision. So I feel like we got two tracks, if that makes sense. That maybe kind of think about, for me, thinking about that calendar is we've got the immediate, and then we also have those long-term things. So I don't know what your thoughts on that, but Mr. Morgan, would you like to, would love to hear your comments.
I just had a comment. I think what you were just talking about is excellent. I would like to see us put more thought into the selection of the presenters and presentations that we do, and try to, not to say that all the presentations weren't good, but I think some may be more valuable at the time for certain. We have a limited amount of time and a little limited amount of availability, and I would like to choose those very carefully. And your comment and suggestion there that we need to put a little effort into selecting presentations a little bit in advance, or possibly presentations one that supports another, or sometimes things need to come in sequence. If you learn about one thing, then that teaches you what you need to know about the next thing. So I guess I would very much agree with that comment, and with that idea that we try to really up our game in the presentations.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. And and thank you, Samantha. Well, I'll pull that right now. So how about we go back, Courtney, into October, because we're in September. Or maybe we have a couple of meetings in September to start pulling a list for our next few meetings. Instead of trying to have a presenter, maybe we just have some of these in-depth conversations. They're kind of start talking about which presentations, topics and presentations and speakers. And then maybe we can spend the next session kind of really the whole agenda, getting more updates, but then also taking a lot of, we can all email Courtney the list of ideas we have, and then maybe we can go through that list and have a good long discussion on some topics. But I want to just say, I hope we all can be flexible if another idea or topic comes up, that we can be open to flexibility. I don't want to make like a hard, fast schedule, or this is our topics, we're not going to talk about anything else. I feel like it would be a living document that can kind of flex. As we've learned, we've had to have some flexibility. So what are your thoughts on that? Courtney?
I think starting at least a brainstorming list in October sounds fantastic. And then that gives James, Angela, and I a lot of time to find like the best presenters on those topics. And I'm wondering if, in order to provide flexibility, we do something like, I know these people are busy, so if we could schedule them in December to come speak in February and March, that might be appreciated for some of these subject matter experts. And maybe we leave gaps in the calendar so that when, we can have spontaneous conversations or invite new people. So we're not totally booking the calendar, but if there's a few really important people, we can get them scheduled ahead of time.
I think that's excellent. So, I think, that meeting after the November 20th, maybe that's when we kind of really finalize kind of our initial, because that gives you all November, December to kind of get for the speakers. So finalize initial, I want to say initial, because I want to leave that flexibility, presentation speaker schedule.
Yep.
Okay, and then maybe in December, we might slow down the cadence just for the holidays and everyone being really busy and getting ready for the session. So I just want to also say that we're not planning to meet every week like we did, but we can if we need to, but just trying to, unless I get the information from all of you that you want to, I just want to make sure that we're still kind of on that 2-week schedule, and we can always vote if we get closer to one of these deadlines, if we need to add another meeting. I don't know how you all feel about that. I see nods. Is anyone opposed to that? Okay. So we'll have a meeting, and so I want to be very, very careful about our time, since we did that voting of the bylaws, and that we're going to end in 9 minutes. So I want to be very careful here, because we have so much to talk about, but we were really good in the beginning. We had those 2 bills. So I think this is a good spot to stop and say we've got a good framework, and then we can meet in 2 weeks, and maybe everyone in the meantime could send their ideas about presentations or topics. Again, this is just an initial list, and then we can kind of talk about it and spitball it and kind of get and then continue this conversation with the calendar as everyone kind of reflects on that. And then we'll see if Director McCombs can come. Next time I'm going to do that after action, and then we can structure the meeting agenda accordingly depending on that. So anybody have any questions or concerns about that plan? So I don't think we need to take action on this, what Courtney's been developing, because we're still developing. So I don't think there's any action items today, and we did not list any action items on the agenda. So any other questions, concerns about the things today? James.
Thank you, Commissioner. And this is an Outlook problem. This isn't I don't think anybody else has this. You said we're meeting in 2 weeks.
Well, I
don't
mean,
see
yeah,
a
1
calendar.
week. Yeah.
Okay, so there is a
2 weeks
meeting
from, 2 weeks. What is it? It's 2 weeks from today. That would be the
15th.
2 weeks from today would be the 15th.
Sorry about 15th. Is that?
I also do not have a calendar on the 15th. I think we have a calendar, or we have a meeting on the 22nd.
Oh, okay.
Which might pose a problem. Let me double check. I don't think Matt is available on September 22nd.
And I also have now a conflict on that day too, because we're opening our behavioral health center, and we're doing an Indigenous ground and blessing, and they moved that up to 8:30, which I kind of have control over, but not really. So I don't know if we can maybe move it back to the 15th. What are people's thoughts on that? And so we can get back. So I think what we're trying to do is we met today, but then Courtney, what's our cadence? Were we the 2nd and 4th, or the 1st and the 3rd? Do we want to go back to the 2nd and 4th?
We were just meeting every 2 weeks, so it didn't correlate with 1st and 3rd or 2nd and 4th. It was every 2 weeks, but because of the Forest Collaborative Summit happening next week, our month got shifted a little bit. So this was an unusual month, but yeah, if people are available on the 15th, we can easily move the meeting.
I'm at a conference, but I can call in like I did last. I think I was at the same conference last year, so I can call in, and we're doing virtual anyway. I'll just be up in Breckenridge for the big budget conference for all the big 10 counties. So we have a lot to talk about. What if anybody can't come on the 15th?
Am I okay? I'm looking at Matt's calendar. I don't know what it means. It just says Sam moving day. So I'll have to get with his EA Christy to see if Sam is important and to see if he needs to help Sam move. But I don't know who that is. So. But
Okay.
other than that, I'm free on that day.
Well, we can always move the after action report to October when we know Director McCombs can be there. So So what, I respectfully asked, sorry, we were supposed to cut it's that first ever behavioral health acute crisis center that we've been waiting for 7 years to open. And it was supposed to be on the 29th. Now they moved it to the 22nd. So I respectfully asked if maybe we can move it to the 15th, but I don't know what everyone else's calendar is, if we can get a quorum. If there's anyone that cannot come, please speak now so we can honor that. Okay, so can I get a motion to have our meeting on the 15th?
I would so move.
Is there a second? Mr. Morgan? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. So, thank you all. Let's end on time today, and I'll see you on the 15th. And you're all welcome to come up to Larimer County and come see this first of its kind, and we think the region, if not the country, center. And you're all welcome to come. Just and if you want to come for the blessing and stuff, just email me, and you're welcome to come join us. And with that, don't forget to email any of your ideas for the calendar or for the topics. And I'll look all forward to seeing you all in 2 weeks, and have a wonderful holiday weekend. And I hope that you get outside, and I wish you well. Thank you.
Thank you.
So let's call this meeting. We are adjourned. Unless you want to take a vote. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.